The 13-year-old girl took off her glasses and looked straight into the woman's eyes. Unexpectedly, she could read everything the woman was thinking. She even knew that this woman was a scammer. It turned out that since birth she had possessed a special ability. She could read other people's thoughts just by looking into their eyes. The girl's name was Ina. She was the third generation of the Bok family. All members of the family possessed extraordinary powers. For example, Ina's grandmother could predict the future through sleep, and Ina's aunt Dong, he had the ability to fly in the sky. Especially Ina's father was Guiju. He could travel back in time. But at present, they could not use those powers because the grandmother suffered from severe insomnia. And Dong, he could not fly because she was too fat. Guiju also could not return to the past because he was depressed after losing his wife 7 years ago. That day, the whole family went to a cliff on the sea to try his superpowers again, but the results were unsuccessful. Mannheim had a huge headache because of the family's situation now. If this continued, those powers would most likely disappear forever. Suddenly, Guiju fell into the sea. Luckily, a brave girl jumped in to save him. After both of them successfully got to shore, Guiju mistook the girl for his deceased ex-wife. He immediately hugged the girl and fainted. The whole family took him to the hospital for a checkup. Luckily, he was fine. A few days later, Mrs. S. Mannheim went for a massage to treat her insomnia. Not only that, she also offered a prize of 1,000 won to anyone who could make her sleep. Even though she had insomnia, she refused to take sleeping pills because she was afraid of side effects and drug resistance. No one in the shop would accept because she was too difficult. Only one new employee named Dahi accepted the challenge. Everyone was happy and agreed to let Dahi do this task. Before starting the massage, Dahi offered Mrs. Mannheim a cup of herbal tea. She shared that this tea is very good for improving sleep. Mrs. Mannheim trusted her and drank a cup of tea. Then Dahi started the massage treatment. Mrs. Mannheim felt a clear difference compared to the other staff here. Thanks to Dahi's skillful hands and professional techniques, Mrs. Mannheim gradually fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, Mrs. Mannheim felt extremely surprised and satisfied with Dahi's service. She decided to give Dahi 1,000 won as promised. When Mrs. Mannheim looked closely at Dahi's face, she suddenly realized that Dahi was the one who saved her son a few days ago. When Guiju fell into the sea, Mrs. Mannheim was overjoyed and quickly gave Dahi more money with deep gratitude. But Dahi refused and said that she had not slept comfortably here. Seeing that, Mrs. Mannheim had the idea of inviting Dahi to her house to continue the massage treatment. Dahi looked at the massage parlor owner. Mrs. La Mannheim understood and immediately gave the owner a tip. The massage parlor owner immediately agreed to let Dahi have an additional massage service at home. Dahi promised to come to her house tomorrow. Mrs. Mannheim was extremely satisfied with Dahi's skills. The next day, Dahi went to Mannheim's house. Dahi was surprised by the luxury of the house. Mannheim invited Dahi to her garden to finish the massage. At the same time, Guiju's room was filled with empty wine bottles. Since he had been depressed, he had been drunk almost every day. Since he ran out of wine, he went to the kitchen to get another bottle. While he was opening the bottle, he saw Dahi coming down to make herbal tea. She offered to help him, but he didn't care. When he walked past Dahi, she intentionally spilled the wine bottle and looked worried about him. She helped him pick up the pieces. Just then, Mrs. Mannheim walked in and saw this scene. She thought that Dahi had saved her son twice, so she was very grateful. Guiju's attitude was still very cold, even though he knew that Dahi was the one who saved him. This made Mrs. Mannheim extremely ashamed of her son and pulled him out. Dahi waited until she was alone in the kitchen and quickly mixed some medicine into the herbal tea. After making sure that the medicine had completely dissolved, she brought the tea to Mrs. Mannheim. Then she started massaging Mrs. Mannheim. Meanwhile, Dahi told that her parents had passed away and that she had been married twice. Her first husband was an adulterer and her second husband was abusive. However, she still dreamed of a happy family. Mrs. Mannheim felt sympathy and realized that her son shared the same pain as Dahi. Mrs. Mannheim said that Guiju got married early, but unfortunately his wife passed away. He still couldn't forget his wife and became depressed. When Dahi left, Mrs. Mannheim was very pleased and praised Dahi to her husband. Before she could finish speaking, she fell asleep without realizing it. In her dream, she saw Dahi wearing the Bok family heirloom ring. When she woke up, she told her husband about it, so she guessed that Dahi was destined for Guiju. Perhaps thanks to Dahi, Guiju was able to escape his depression and recover his superpowers. So Mrs. Mannheim told her husband to immediately schedule an appointment for Dahi to come to her house. On the other side, Dae went home to take a bath, which was her house. It turns out that her family is not dead. Her mother works as a back scrubber at a sauna. Although she is a scammer, Dae also has a weakness. She is afraid of fire. Cooking a pack of noodles is also a challenge for her. In the end, because she was so scared, she ate the noodles raw. Guiju's family owns a building worth $50 billion, in which Guiju owns a gym in that building. That day, a beautiful girl with a sexy body, named Grace, came to apply to be a trainer there. Guiju hired her without reading her application. When Grace was just exclaiming that it was so easy to apply for a job, Dong-hee, Guiju's older sister, stopped her and checked her application. After carefully examining it and realizing that Grace had a home fitness channel on YouTube and nearly 300 subscribers, Dong-hee immediately agreed. Then Guiju came down and gave his sister some money to buy a birthday present for his daughter. Dong Hee was consulting a client about liposuction, but because of her overweight appearance, the client felt insecure. Her pants button accidentally hit the customer's face, causing the customer to angrily leave. The director of this private hospital, who is also Dong Hee's lover, saw that scene and felt helpless. He immediately told Dong Hee that she no longer needed counsel. She looked back at her poster at the clinic when she had not gained weight and felt sad. Then Dong Hee bought some cake to eat. Even though she had not paid yet, she had eaten a lot. But when she swiped her card, all the cards exceeded the limit. She had to use the money Guiju asked her to buy a gift for his daughter to pay. Suddenly, she received a call from her mother, informing her that Da Hei would come to their house to attend in a birthday on Saturday. On Saturday, when Guiju saw his parents preparing food, he wondered why his daughter had never had a birthday party before. Why did she suddenly have one this time? At this time, Dong Hee appeared and said that she would come too. Guiju looked at his sister and realized that she had spent all the money he gave her. Meanwhile, his mother tried to match him with Da Hei. Guiju felt tired and disappointed. Da Hei arrived and was happily welcomed by Man Hom and her husband. During mealtime, Man Hom openly stated her intention to have Da Hei marry Guiju. Guiju and his sister immediately threatened Da Hei that their family was very scary. Guiju's daughter was at the age of being naughty, so she would definitely suffer if she married him. Guiju's mother pulled him into the house. Mr. Sun Gu called Ina down to the party. At that time, only Da Hei and Dong Hee were left. Dong Hee said that she was on a diet, but in fact, she was craving lobster. So she asked Da Hei to get her a glass of water. After Da Hei left, Dong Hee began to eat comfortably. Mr. Sun Gu called his niece down to celebrate her birthday and eat delicious food. Ina expressed that she only wanted to eat seaweed soup that he cooked. Of course, Mr. Sun Gu agreed to this simple request from his beloved niece. He went to the kitchen to cook seaweed soup and light candles on a cake for Ina. At the same time, Guiju questioned his mother about why she invited another woman home on Ina's birthday. She replied that she wanted him to forget his ex-wife and live happily again. She did not forget to scold Guiju for previously discouraging the two from falling in love because she did not see a future for them. But Guiju disobeyed her and insisted on getting married. This was heard by Da Hei, who was getting water. Suddenly, In came down from upstairs and witnessed the whole thing. She came down to blow out the candles on her cake and went upstairs. Seeing his daughter's attitude, Guiju angrily left. At this time, it suddenly started raining outside. Mr. Sun Gu and Mrs. Manhom ran out to bring in food. Suddenly, Mrs. Manhom felt dizzy and fainted. Mr. Sun Gu and Dong Hee rushed her to the hospital. Mr. Sun Gu asked Da Hei to run in and turn off the gas stove for the seaweed soup he was cooking. But he didn't know that Da Hei was most afraid of fire. Da Hei looked at the gas stove that was burning fiercely. She found a pair of tongs and mustered up all her courage to approach it. Luckily, Ina went downstairs and turned off the stove. Da Hei only had time to thank him. Suddenly, Ina asked Da Hei what she wanted to put in the soup. Because Ina had seen Da Hei put medicine in Mrs. Manhoon's tea, Da Hei explained that it was licorice concentrate, but Ina didn't listen and went upstairs. A while later, smelling the aroma of the seaweed soup, Ina went downstairs again and saw that Da Hei had prepared food for her. At first, the little girl refused to eat until Da Hei ate first. Then Ina felt at ease and realized that the food was delicious. Da Hei also spoke well of Guiju, making In feel more sympathetic towards her. Therefore, In advised Da Hei not to get involved with this family and revealed the secret that her family had superpowers. But now the family is suffering from modern diseases, so the superpowers have been lost. They listened to everything. However, Da Hei did not believe it and thought that Ina had a rich imagination. On this side, Guiju went to buy a gift for Ina and then visited his ex-wife's grave. There he met his ex-wife's parents there. His mother-in-law wondered why Guiju was also in an accident, but why he was not injured. Guiju could not explain. When he got home, Guiju found Da Hei washing the dishes. Da Hei shared that Ina had just had dinner with her. Guiju was extremely surprised because as far as he knew, Ina never ate dinner. Da Hei also told her about the day she saved him at sea. She saw him step into the sea to save a little girl's stuffed rabbit, and he did everything. She praised him as a superhero for that action. And she said that in the past, someone sacrificed himself to save her, so she always cherished her own life to repay that person. Da Hei's words moved Guiju, but he still tried to act cold. After asking Guiju to wash the dishes, Da Hei said goodbye to him and left. Da Hei returned to the sauna and was rewarded by her mother with a cup of rice water for her acting skills. Suddenly, Da Hei's younger sister walked out. She was Grace. It turned out that Da Hei's family lived on fraud. Before Da Hei married her two ex-husbands, it was thanks to her and her family's perfect acting. Their whole family received a large sum of money from her to ex-husbands for mental damages as well as divorce benefits. What Da Hei's family was aiming for was her ex-husband's property. This time the next victim is Guiju. Da Hei tells the story of this family having special abilities. That's why the family got rich from stocks or lottery. And now their family has lost their special abilities due to the disease of the times. Da Hei's family laughed at this, they thought it was absurd. The disease of the times was because Guiju's family was too happy and became sick. Guiju went into his daughter's room and wished her a happy birthday. He also gave Ina a very cute stuffed rabbit. The little girl immediately put the stuffed rabbit her father gave her in the closet. There were countless stuffed rabbits in there. Ina remembered the accident 7 years ago. Guiju also gave her a stuffed rabbit. Then Guaz returned to the past. Only mother and daughter were left in the car. Suddenly, In-A's eyes changed color, and then the car crashed into a ravine. When Guiju returned to the present, it was too late. When Guiju was 9 years old, he had won a lottery and won the Carp King prize. He was extremely happy to receive the award. When he got home, Guiju saw his mother watching the stock market on the newspaper. He sneaked into the house, but his mother found out because he had gone out. When he showed it to his mother, she broke the prize and beat Guiju with a whip. Suddenly, Guiju returned to the moment when he won the Carp King prize. The whole world was gray and colorless. Only Guiju had full color. It was the first time he used his ability to go back to the past when he remembered a happy moment. A few days later, Guiju returned to that moment again, but he realized that he could only see, not touch, everything in the past. Suddenly, Guiju was shocked when he saw the scene of the little dog and its owner. The dog ran to the intersection and had an accident, lying motionless on the side of the road. The little girl's sobbing made him feel even more heartbroken. Guiju realized that a moment of happiness for him could also be a moment of unhappiness for others. He tried to go back to the past to save the dog but failed. No matter what he did. After returning many times, Guiju did not feel happy at that moment. Partly because of returning many times, the rest was the feeling of guilt in his mind. Since then, Guiju has not been able to return to that moment. Returning to the present, Guiju looked at the pile of teddy bears in it throughout. It seemed that his daughter no longer liked them. However, the truth was that in a thought that because of her birth, many bad things happened to her family. So she felt that she did not deserve to receive a birthday present. That is why she threw all the teddy bears away. Before Ina went to school, Guiju observed that someone was following Ina. He told her to be careful when going to school. Guiju went to the mall to buy another gift for his daughter. Dahai had followed him before and pretended to come there by chance. She offered to help him choose a gift but Guiju refused. Dahai tried to hold his hand, but Guiju pushed it away. Unfortunately, he tore her sleeve. He shyly left to drink beer nearby. A moment later, Dahi appeared in front of Guiju with the shoes he had refused earlier. She begged on to bring the shoes back to Ina. Thinking of his daughter, Guiju reluctantly took the shoes and threw a wad of money on the table. He didn't want to owe Dahi. Then he left without paying any attention to Dahi. While Dahi was drinking beer in the mall, the fire alarm suddenly rang. Everyone ran away. Dahi was extremely panicked. She couldn't move because she was so scared. She could only hold her head and sit down. Suddenly a hand grabbed her hand. When Dahi raised her head, she found out that it was Guiju. She was extremely surprised because she thought he had already gone home. Suddenly, the security guard announced that the fire alarm just now was just a system error. Dahi turned her head towards the security guard, and when she turned back, Guiju had disappeared. She felt confused and did not understand why he suddenly appeared and helped her when she was panicking. At home, Ina received the shoes outside the door. The girl loved the gift. She smiled brightly and looked at herself in the mirror. Guiju saw his daughter happily receiving the shoes and felt happy inside. A few days later, Mrs. Manholm invited Dahi to her family's gym and said that if Dahi became her daughter-in-law, the whole building would belong to Dahi. Although Dahi really wanted to, she still restrained herself and replied that she was not someone who easily got married. After going through two previous failed marriages, that tactfulness made Mrs. Manholm very pleased. Dong-hee was nearby and observed the whole thing. She pulled her mother aside and warned Dahi that she might be a scammer. Grace, who was nearby, overheard and signaled Dahi. Just then, Guiz arrived at the gym. Dahi approached him to thank him for helping her in the fire and even holding her hand to comfort her. But he didn't understand what she said. Mrs. Manholm was very happy to hear that because she thought their relationship had improved. When Dahi returned home, she wondered why Guiju didn't admit to holding her hand. It seemed like he had some secret. At school, Ina seemed to be an invisible girl. Few people paid attention to her. That made Ina feel lost and lonely. Currently, Ina hasn't joined any clubs even though she really wants to integrate with her friends. However, her shyness and embarrassment prevent her from signing up for any activities. Because of that, the homeroom teacher called Guizu and told him to pay more attention to his daughter. The teacher also reminded Guiju to sign the information that the school sent to the parents. At this time, Guiz found the papers in her daughter's desk box and signed everything. After finishing signing, Guiju went downstairs to find some alcohol. Suddenly, Mr. Sungu appeared and invited him to go drink at the restaurant. There were his mother and Dahe. Guiju was about to leave when Mr. Sungu pushed him in. A moment later, Guiju's father and mother left to create conditions for Guiju and Dahe to be alone together. However, Guiju still acted cold towards Dahe and continued to drink alone. At the cosmetic clinic, Dong-hee discovered that it was past time and her lover had not returned. The staff said that he was examining a customer. Dong-hee had to wait outside. She heard laughter in the clinic. Unable to bear the laughter, Dong-hee immediately went to check. She caught sight of her lover and Grace happily chatting. The two explained that they were just seeing a doctor, leaving Dong-hee speechless. She felt disappointed and jealous. Dong-hee invited her lover out for a drink and took the opportunity to suggest that they register their marriage, so they could soon have a 50 billion building. The reason was that Mrs. Moore, Manholm had made a deal with her two children that whoever got married first would inherit the 50 billion house. However, her lover refused, saying that they would only consider getting married when they paid off the rent he borrowed from her. Dong Hee knew he was making an excuse to refuse. She still couldn't resist thinking that the reason was her overweight body. Dong Hee was determined to change herself by going back to the gym. She worked hard to lose weight. She believed that only when her body became slimmer would he come back to love her passionately. In another development, Ina was on her way home when she suddenly stopped. Someone was following her from behind and ran as fast as she could to the nearest restroom and started calling each family member. But everyone was busy. Grandma was sleeping, Grandpa was busy cleaning, and Aunt Dong Hee was busy losing weight. Ina had no choice but to call her father. But the person who answered the phone was Dahai. Dahai woke up Guiju to help Ina, even though he was currently drunk. But when Dahai mentioned his daughter's name, Guiju woke up and rushed out. When Guiju ran to the public restroom, he saw a very suspicious man outside. The man was Dahai's family member. He was here to follow Ina. Guiju suspected that he was the one who scared Ina, so Guiju immediately rushed to fight the man. The man wanted to fight back, but Dahai signaled him not to touch Guiju and to leave as soon as possible. Guiju, drunk, punched the man's helmet. The man pretended to be seriously injured and ran away. At this time, Ina also came out of the bathroom. Guiju comforted his daughter that he had dealt with the stalker and told her not to worry. But Ina did not understand what her father was saying. She whispered to Dahai about her problem. It turned out that Ina ran to the bathroom and called for help because it was her first time on her period. Not because there was a stalker. Dahai helped Ina buy sanitary napkins and lent her a shirt to cover the blood stains on her skirt. After successfully taking Ina home, Guiju asked Dahi out for a drink to thank her. Dahi recalled the moment when the two held hands at the mall, but Guiju still denied it. Dahi guessed that maybe it was him in the future who held her hand, but Guiju insisted that it was not true. Because even if he could go back to the past, he would not be able to touch anything from the past, and he was currently depressed. So he could not go back to the past. Dong Hee was still running with increasing intensity. She really wanted to return to her slim body like before. Suddenly, while running, Dong Hee flew up for a moment and fell off the treadmill. Grace saw this and immediately came out to support Dong Hee. When Guiju returned home, he remembered what Dahi said when he held her hand. He tried to close his eyes, and sure enough, he had returned to the moment the fire alarm rang at the mall. The whole world was gray, only Guiju had full color, and he was able to touch her. It turns out that Dahai wasn't lying, he really held her hand. Guiju returned to the present, his ability had returned. Not only that, he could also touch other people. So he tried to go back to the happy moments with his ex-wife, and wished he could touch her. Sure enough, he was able to go back, but it was the beach scene when Dahi saved him. He tried again, this time going back to the moment Guiju was with In and Dahi in the public restroom. Every time he went back to the past, Dahi was there. He was so surprised by this new discovery. Immediately after that, Guiju went to her workplace to clearly question why Dahi appeared in his mind during his happy moments. But the way he asked was like he was confessing his feelings. Mrs. Manholm saw this scene and immediately told Guiju that Dahi would be the important person to help the whole family regain their lost ability. After that, she suggested that Dahi quit her job at the spa and move in with them. On the surface, she asked Dahi to tutor and take care of Ina, but in reality, the purpose was to get Dahi and Guiju married. Then he saw her waiting at the fountain. Memories of his daughter's birthday flooded back. It turned out that the moment Ina was born, Guiju's entire fire department had to deal with a fire at the high school. His captain passed away in that fire. Seeing the captain's wife and children crying at the funeral made Gui's heart broken. Because that day, the captain took the initiative to take over Guiju's shift so that he could go to the hospital with his daughter. Guiju's happiest moment was also the moment when others were most miserable. During the captain's funeral, Guiju suddenly flashed back to the moment his daughter was born. Not far away was that fire. Suddenly, Guiju saw the yellow hospital door standing out in the gray scene. He reached out to touch it and succeeded. That was the first time he could touch something in the past. Without thinking much, Guiju immediately ran to that high school fire. He saw with his own eyes the captain running into the fire. Then the building collapsed, and the captain lost his life. No matter how many times Guiju tried to return to the past, he could not save the captain at that moment. Because of that, he was haunted and could not concentrate on his mission. In the end, his boss told him to go for psychological treatment. From then on, Guiju quit his job as a firefighter. After that time, Guiju sometimes unconsciously returned to the moment his daughter was born. But he could only helplessly watch everyone in the fire, which also caused a lot of trouble for his family. Because sometimes he suddenly disappeared and suddenly appeared. On the day of the accident, Guiju's ex-wife threatened that if he disappeared today, she would take Ina away from here. Before he could understand what she said, he had already returned to the past. But this time, Guiju did not go to save anyone, but decided to return to the present with his wife. But it was too late. His wife drove the car down the cliff and passed away, while Ina was lucky to keep her life. Returning to the present, Guiju sadly went home, leaving Dahi waiting for him at the fountain. Because he thought he would cause trouble for others. At night, Dahi's family gathered. Dahi's mother, Li Hong, thought that the Bok family was not normal when they thought they had superpowers. So she wanted Dahi to collect a lot of evidence to fight them in court. The next day, Guiju was surprised to see Dahi move into his house. She said that yesterday he went to the fountain and gave her this bouquet of flowers. Mannheim and her husband were there and were very happy to hear the news. But Guiju kept denying it and pulled Dahi out to ask about her lie. But Dahi insisted that not only did he give her flowers, he also hugged her there. Guiju thought that maybe it was his future self who did it, so he let it go. Dahi went in to eat with everyone. Time went back many years ago. On the catwalk, a girl was confidently walking. Everyone was staring at her. That was Donghee's past. She used to be very slim and had a sexy body. After the performance, she jumped from the rooftop and flew. While enjoying the happiness, her body suddenly started to gain weight. Donghee couldn't control her body and fell to the ground. It turned out that it was just a dream. The noise outside the door woke her up. At the same time, Donghee also received bad news that the apartment she was living in was about to be sold. Donghee immediately returned to her mother's house. At that time, Mrs. Mannheim was getting a massage from Dahi. Dahi understood and left so that the mother and daughter could talk. Donghee discovered that her family's finances were currently in dire straits due to her mother's wrong investments. Dahi recorded everything outside and then went out to report to her family. When it was time for dinner, Dahi realized that the family refused to eat together. Ina cooked spicy noodles for herself, and when she took off her glasses, Dahi took her glasses. She tried to ask for her glasses back. Dahi told Ina to close her eyes and fixed her eyebrows. That made her prettier. Suddenly, their eyes met. Ina's eyes turned blue, and she could read Dahi's thoughts. It turned out that Ina's superpower was to read other people's thoughts if they looked at each other. She had hidden her ability from everyone, which was why Ina always wore glasses. She realized that Dahi was plotting to take over the building. The next day in class, Ina's glasses were snatched off by a classmate. Because of her severe nearsightedness, Ina couldn't see clearly. Suddenly, Ina's boyfriend picked up her glasses and returned them to her. At that moment, their eyes met. Ina's boyfriend complimented her on her beauty when he saw Ina's bare face. At the gym, Donghee called her boyfriend. She asked him to have dinner with her tonight, but he found a reason to reject her. Donghee immediately called her close friends to ask them to go out to dinner tonight. Grace heard about it. At night, when Donghee was about to leave with her close friends, she saw her boyfriend walking with Grace into the hotel. Donghee immediately ran upstairs to check and saw the two of them kissing passionately in front of the room. At that time, Donghee was shocked, but she just left without doing anything. In fact, Grace intentionally let Donghee see that scene because she wanted Donghee to break up with that bastard boyfriend. The next morning, when her boyfriend came home, Donghee took the initiative to suggest that the two of them stopped seeing each other for a while. He said he was worried about Donghee, but he was happy to be free from her. That night, Dahi was cooking soup, but accidentally let the fire catch on the paper next to the gas stove. She panicked and didn't know what to do until Guiju came to help her put out the fire. He realized she was afraid of fire. When Guiju took out the trash, he saw a flower shop outside. There was a bouquet of flowers that looked very similar to the one he gave Dahi. When Guiju picked it up, the owner said that the bouquet was only for sale today because it was almost out of season. Suddenly, he went back to the past with his hands holding that bouquet. The scene was still monochrome, only Dahi was full of color. Guiju walked in front of her and was about to reject her. Suddenly a car passed by, causing Guiju to pull Dahi into his arms to avoid the car. That made Dahi misunderstand that he had hugged her. Then she saw the bouquet of flowers Guiju was holding. Dahi thought Guiju brought her flowers, so she happily accepted the flowers, much to Guiju's surprise. At the same time, Mr. Sun Gu was dancing in the dance hall. This scene was captured by Dahi's accomplices. Meanwhile, Dahi was making tea and putting medicine in it like usual. Suddenly, Donghee returned and announced that she would be living here from now on and wanted to drink the tea Dahi was making. Dahi was startled and stopped Donghee from drinking. Donghee realized Jaehee's unusual behavior and immediately asked Dahi if she had mixed anything into the tea. Dae immediately drank the whole cup of tea and said that she wanted to make Donghee a cup of hot tea, so she stopped Donghee. Then Dahi washed the dishes and fell asleep under Donghee's supervision. Dae told herself not to sleep. Suddenly, she saw Donghee go into the secret room to rummage through valuables. Dahi secretly followed, even though she was very sleepy, and recorded the scene, with the purpose of disqualifying Donghee as guardian. Suddenly, Dahi saw Donghee floating off the floor, while trying to get something from above. Dahi couldn't believe her eyes, she looked again, and it was still the same scene. Dahi was so scared that she quickly ran outside, but accidentally made a noise that made Donghee turn back. Dahi ran to the stairs to go to her room, and accidentally bumped into Guiju, and was caught by him. But before she could calm down, her expression changed again because the mirror did not reflect Guiju's image. She quickly left his arms, screamed loudly and ran downstairs. Back in the past, after accidentally giving flowers to Dahi, Guiju suddenly returned to the present. The flower card had gone quite a distance. He remembered the time he held Dahi's hand in the past, but it wasn't because he had feelings for her, but because he was moved. That this time he had saved someone with his ability, Guiju told Mr. Sun Gu. The two were surprised that Guiju's ability had developed. Mr. Sun Gu then led him to the back family's study. There were many books that had been kept for many generations. Mr. Sun Gu said that in the past, ancestors had also revealed their powers. For example, there was someone who had the ability to breathe fire, but only when they went to war. When an ancestor held his friend's hand in a dangerous situation, his power was revealed. Or a girl who had the ability to transform into another person against her will when standing in front of the person she loved. Gradually, she forgot how to return to her original form. Even if that girl transformed into many other girls, she still couldn't have the love of the person she loved. Because he already had someone he liked, he drew that person, and surprisingly, it was the original appearance of the girl who could transform. After knowing the truth, the girl had both love and her original form. So Mr. Sun Guo concluded that Da He was the key to Guiju's power. But Guiju wanted him to keep this a secret, and the two of them continued to monitor. Then Guiju went into the house and saw Da He running to the second floor in fear. She muttered that there was a ghost. He curiously walked in the door and saw Da He walking down to the first floor in fear. Da He had just met Guiju on the second floor, and now she met him on the first floor, making her speechless. Because she was so scared, plus she had taken sleeping pills earlier, Da He fainted right there. Just then, Mrs. Manhoon and her husband also came in. The whole family was surprised and didn't understand what Da He saw. Dong He stepped forward and said that because she had flown a little, Da He might have seen it and was scared. Dong He did not forget to question why Da He entered the secret room of her house. Mrs. Manham guessed that Da He was just passing by. The whole family took Da He to her room and were extremely worried because she did not wake up. But Dong He came and said that Da He was just sleeping. The reason was that Da He put medicine in Mrs. Manham's tea and she drank the tea. But Mrs. Manham did not believe it and thought that Dong He was lying in order to take over the 50 billion building. That night, Mrs. Manheim slept and dreamed that Da He was taken to the hospital for a public bath. She woke up and guessed that it was a bad dream. The next morning, Da He woke up and remembered everything that happened yesterday. She was extremely panicked and wondered what she saw yesterday. Then Da He changed her clothes and sneaked out of the room. Suddenly, Dong He stepped forward, scaring Da He and causing her to back away. Da He still clearly remembered how Dong He flew to the hallway yesterday. Suddenly, Dong He told Da He to take a closer look at her toenails. Da He was afraid that Dong He would fly away again, but when she looked down, she saw nothing but her newly done nails. It turned out that Dong He was talking about her toenails and they both burst out laughing. Then Da He went downstairs to cook breakfast. Fried eggs, 4 in a. Suddenly, Mrs. Manhoon came downstairs and told Da He about her dream about seeing Da He being taken out on a stretcher from the sauna. Hearing that, Da He was extremely scared because that was her house. She accidentally ruined the fried eggs. Seeing that, Ina also stopped eating breakfast. Day chased after her and gave in a banana. Ina continued to tell Da He to escape from this place immediately. Hearing that, Da He immediately packed her things and sneaked out of the house. Guiju saw all of this. He followed her to the sauna and entered it. Da He entered the house and told her mother that the Guiju family had supernatural powers. She convinced her mother to let this scam go, but Mrs. Li Hong thought the Guiju family was paranoid. Her mother forced Da He to quickly register her marriage with Guiju and then register as guardian. Mrs. Li Hong did not forget to remind Da He of the debt he owed. It turned out that she was not Mrs. Li Hong's biological daughter. Many years ago, Da He's father died from drinking. During the funeral, Mrs. Li Hong and her husband came and demanded the money Da He's father owed her. She forced Da He to sign an insurance policy that if Da He died, she would get the money. Currently, Mrs. Li Hong is Da He's adoptive mother. Back in the present, Mrs. Li Hong forced her to carry out the scam plan that the family had originally set out. When Guiju went into the sauna, he was seen by Da He's uncle, Hyung Tai. Hyung Tai tried to call Da He to inform her, but her phone was in the cabinet. Hyung Tai watched Guiju while making rice rolls. Guiju was looking for Da He. After failing to call Da He, Hyung Tai called Mrs. Li Hong, but she didn't have her phone with her either. Da He and Mrs. Li Hong were talking when Guiju found them. He was very surprised because Da He called Mrs. Li Hong mom. He remembered that Da He had said that she had no family. Mrs. Li Hong stood up and signaled to Hyung Tai outside. He understood and turned on the fire alarm. Da He was very scared when she heard the fire alarm. She sat on the ground and couldn't move. Guiju saw that and carried her outside. Suddenly, both of them fell down because the floor was slippery. Mrs. Li Hong told Hyung Tai to call an ambulance to take Da He to the hospital. In the hospital, she told Guiju about Da He's story. It turned out that she was her adoptive mother. A few years ago, Da He's high school had a fire. She adopted Da He because she had no relatives. Since Li Hong was not Da He's official relative, so Li Hong wanted Guiju to sign a document confirming Guiju as her guardian. Suddenly, Man Hong called. Guiju answered the phone and confirmed that Da He was in the hospital. At that moment, Li Hong approached her bedside and told her to wake up. It turned out that Da He had pretended to faint. She worriedly told Li Hong that Guiju's family really had superpowers. But Li Hoon didn't care and told Da He to bring the marriage certificate back. Guiju reported Da He's condition to Man Home. He then returned and saw that Da He had woken up. Da He said that my mother had gone home because she had to watch the sauna. Guiju paid the hospital bill and took Da He home. In the car, he admitted to her about his superpowers. The whole thing where he appeared before her and disappeared was Guiju of the future. It wasn't that he forgot. It was just that things in the past, even though they happened to her, didn't happen to him, that's all. At the same time, in the past, he could only touch her. When they returned home, Mrs. Manhome learned that her son had told Da He about the family's ability. She worriedly scolded her son for fear that Da He would be scared and run away. In the past, when his ex-wife had just died, Guiju had tried to go back to the moment when he was with his ex-wife to save her. But his mother stopped him and said that he couldn't change that because she had dreamed of her father's death before. She tried everything to stop it but couldn't, because that future was something that was bound to happen. She scolded her son not to try to change the future. In the past, the ancestors of the Bok family were burned to death for saving others. She advised Guiju to look at reality. Back in the present, Guiju believes that he can save Dahi, so he reveals his ability to her. When Dahi returns to her room, she writes down Guiju's family and the abilities they once possessed. At the dance club, Ina sits quietly in a corner. She listens to the music and watches her friends practice. Suddenly, Ina's boyfriend appears and snatches her headphones and compliments the song she is listening to. From afar, Hiram sees Ina and boyfriend. Her smile disappears, replaced by an expression of dissatisfaction. After club activities, the group goes out to eat tteokbokki. Ina quietly walks in the opposite direction. She enters a convenience store to buy super spicy noodles. Hiram also follows Ina and eats noodles with her. While the two of them are eating together, Hiram asks Ina how she feels about her boyfriend. At that moment, Ina's glasses are taken off by Hiram. Ina immediately reads Hiram's thoughts. It turns out that Hiram also likes Ina's boyfriend. Hiram doesn't want Ina to have feelings for her current boyfriend. Ina has to lie that her boyfriend is extremely annoying. Ina's lie is accidentally heard by her boyfriend. Ina regrets what she said. She thinks that she shouldn't read other people's minds. Hiram looks at Ina and smiles smugly. Although Dong-hee is very determined to lose weight during the day, at night, she brings a lot of food to her room. Suddenly, she sees her mother sneaking around in front of Dahee's room. Mrs. Man-ham is extremely worried and afraid that Dahee will leave because their family's secret has been revealed. Dong-hee knocks on the door to ask, but Dahee comes out and tells her need to be quiet. Then she goes into the room, remembering Guiju's words. Dahee thinks of a way and prints out the marriage certificate. Guiju remembers Dahee's accident in the sauna. He goes back to the past with the hope of saving her from the accident. When he saw Dahee, he followed and accidentally walked into the women's changing room. Because he was too panicked, he returned to the present. Feeling shocked by the scene, Guiyu went to the bathroom to flush the toilet to help himself regain consciousness. Then he continued to return to the past. But Guiju returned to the moment when Dahee panicked and stepped out of the secret room. When she stepped up and almost fell, luckily Guiju caught her in time. Then Dahee thought he was a ghost. She pushed him away and ran downstairs. Guiju understood why Dahee was so scared that day. Guiju returned to the present. He came out of the bathroom, and Dahee also came. She gave him the marriage certificate and said that Guiju of the future gave her this, and said that the two of them needed to register their marriage as soon as possible. Realizing that Guiju was suspicious, Dahee immediately told him about her past. On the day the high school burned down, someone came to save her. That person was Guiju. That's why she wanted to marry him. However, Guiju replied that it was the wrong order. If they really had feelings for each other, they would get married. Then he went up and kissed Dahee. The two kissed passionately. Suddenly, Dahee stopped because she felt someone watching her behind the door. Then she returned to her room. Suddenly, she saw something outside the window. When she opened the curtains, she discovered Dong-hee flying outside. Dahee immediately backed away because she was so scared. She remembered that this whole family had superpowers. She started to lose confidence when facing them. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Ma'am came over and said that she was having trouble sleeping right now. She wanted to ask Dahee for help. The two of them went down to the kitchen. Mrs. Ma'am told a story while Dahee made tea. She said that in her recent dream, she only dreamed of Dahee. That made Dahee startled and scared. Then she walked over and held Dahee's hand and excitedly said that she dreamed of Dahee holding her family's heirloom ring in her hand. This made Dahee tremble with fear. Mrs. Manham did not know that Dahee was hiding sleeping pills in her hand. Just a little more and everything would be exposed. Guiju did not believe what Dahee said. He wondered if what she said was true. Then he went to sleep on the couch, but every time he closed his eyes, he would go back to the past when the two of them kissed, causing him to wake up in panic. After that, he tried everything, but every time he lay down, he would go back to that moment, making him extremely angry. The next morning, Guiju saw Dahee vacuuming the house. He saw her slowly walking into the family's secret room. Actually, she was planning to search for his family's safe to steal the family's precious ring. Suddenly, Guiju called out, startling Dahee. He called her out and said that he didn't like their love developing so quickly. He also said that the future she told him might be fake, and he asked her to tell him about how he saved her at school 13 years ago. Dahee avoided telling that story and said that anyway, the two of them kissed and would get married soon, so it was no problem. Guiju said that he did it just to test if he had feelings for her, and he concluded that he didn't have feelings for her. Guiju was slapped by Dahee as soon as she finished speaking. She then angrily turned and left. In the secret room in the house, Mrs. Manham was shocked to find that her precious watch had disappeared. She hurriedly asked Dong-hee, but she firmly denied it. However, Mrs. Manham noticed something unusual in Dong-hee's actions, so she rushed over to check. It turned out that Dong-hee was just hiding snacks. The mother and daughter turned their suspicions to Dahee. They sneaked into Guiju's room and caught Dahee trying to hide something behind her back. Dong-hee aggressively went to check. Guiju and Mr. Sun Gu also curiously ran into the room to see what was going on. When Dong He snatched what Da Hei was holding from her hand, the whole family was surprised to see that it was a marriage certificate. Guiju's parents were extremely happy and told him to quickly go to the district office to register their marriage. Dong Hei was extremely shocked and couldn't believe this fact. Guizhu calmly explained that a small ceremony needed to be held before they officially became a family. At this point, Da Hei was forced to reveal her secret. She was an adopted child, adopted by the owner of Asana. Hearing this, Mrs. Manholm had a bad feeling and asked her husband to investigate the background of Da Hei's adoptive mother. At Ina's school, the girl gave Hai Rim her grandma's watch. It turned out that Ina was the culprit who stole the watch. Hai Rim happily accepted the watch and hugged Ina tightly. When it was time to leave, Hai Rim saw Ina's shoes and asked to try them on. Ina accidentally read her mind and knew that she liked the shoes. Ina immediately lent Hai Rim the shoes. Hai Rim held Ina's hand and said that they were really good friends. That made Ina extremely happy. It had been a long time since she had a close friend like Hai Rim. In front of the sauna, Mr. Sun Gu was there watching and called the detective to investigate Mrs. Li Hong's house. Unfortunately, Hai Tai discovered his actions. After arriving at the detective's place, the detective recognized Miss Li Hong and informed he that she had a history of fraud. She was a loan shark and had never had a debtor who did not pay her. Mr. Sun Gu was very surprised by this information. He immediately called his wife. But when Mrs. Manhoon answered the phone, Mrs. Li Hong was also at the Bok family's house talking. Mrs. Li Hong said that Da Hei had to quit her job at the massage parlor and come here to live without pay as a maid. That was not what she wanted for her daughter, who had been married twice. Mrs. Li Hong wanted Mrs. Manham to quickly give Da Hei a status in the Bok family. When Mrs. Manham asked about her glorious past, Mrs. Li Hong admitted that she used to be a scammer. But she didn't do it anymore. She took on the job of scrubbing customers' backs to make up for what she had done. After escorting Mrs. Li Hong out the door, Da Hei asked why she came so suddenly. She said that this family was looking for information about them, so she had to come to stop them in advance. It was also to speed up the marriage process for Da Hei. When Ina returned home, Dai realized that she was wearing a different pair of shoes than the one she had this morning. Dai realized that Ina might be being bullied. Dai remembered her school days when she was bullied by her friends who poured milk on her shoes. That day, she had to go home barefoot. So Dai really wanted to help Ina. Dai went upstairs to ask Ina about school. In Ina's room, Ha Rim had just invited her to the group chat. The group went to the park on the weekend. Ina had a happy smile on her face. Suddenly, Dahai walked over and continued to ask her about school. Ina accidentally looked into Dahai's eyes. Dahai thought she was being bullied. So, Ina quickly said that she wasn't being bullied. This made Dahai suspect that she could read other people's minds. Dahai tried to think that there was a very big spider behind Ina, but at that time, I was wearing glasses. So she only found Dahai's actions a bit strange. On the other side, Grace was being bothered by a student in the gym. She contemptuously refused him and was immediately beaten by him. Luckily, Dong Hee came to Grace's rescue in time. To thank Dong Hee, Grace invited her to eat barbecue. Dong Hee said she didn't eat, but she still went. She even ate a lot. The two confided in each other. Dong Hee said that everyone judges others by their appearance. For example, the girl who lives with her was the one who stole the watch. But Dong Hee's mother suspected her. Obviously, the girl living with her was Da Hei. Hearing that, Grace accidentally said that there was no need to steal that cheap watch because when they got married, they would take over the 50 billion won house. Dong Hee asked Grace how she knew the value of that house with a suspicious look. Grace lied and said that everyone knew the market price of that house. But this statement didn't fool Dong Hee. After Dong Hee returned home, Mrs. Manholm called Dong Hee and her husband into the kitchen and announced the important news. That Da Hee's adoptive mother had a criminal record. Because of that, she thought about it all afternoon. Mr. Sun Gu wanted to help Da Hei, so he said that she had nothing to do with her adoptive mother. But Dong Hee thought differently. She had more reason to confirm that Da Hei was a fraud and told her mother to quickly kick Da Hei out of the house. Mrs. Man, he wondered what the dream the day before of Da Hei wearing her family heirloom ring meant. Dong Hee said that it was possible that Da Hei stole their family ring and said that the dream was a warning to her. At the same time, Gui Ju and Da Hei were in the living room. Gui Ju continued to ask Da Hei how he saved her 13 years ago. He still didn't believe what she said. He himself always wanted to use his ability to save people, and he kept returning to that moment for a long time without saving anyone. So her answer was very important. Seeing her avoiding the question, Gui Ju went back to the past when she slapped him that afternoon. At that time, she also avoided his question. After the two went in different directions, he noticed that her shoelaces were untied. Looking at her pained expression, Gui Ju guessed that she probably didn't want to mention what happened 13 years ago. Because it brought up unpleasant memories, Gui Ju realized that he was wrong to keep asking Da Hei. He walked over to her and helped her tie her shoelaces. He then returned to the present and apologized to Da Hei for making her remember the terrible things. The next day, Mr. Sun Gu came to Gui Ju's room to convince him to open up to Da Hei. Gui Ju was afraid that he would mess up again this time, but Mr. Sun Gu said that he would definitely mess up, but he could go back in time and fix it, because Da Hei was very special. Before Mr. Sun Gu could finish speaking, Gui Ju returned to the past when the two kissed. He wondered if he should love again. Then he went out and saw Ina go into the secret room to steal a watch. It turned out that she was the culprit. Guiju muttered that if Ina liked it, he could buy it for her. Why would he do that? Hearing his daughter whisper that you would like it, he guessed that she was being bullied at school. Guiju immediately went to school to find the homeroom teacher to talk. At the same time, Dahi also went to Ina's school to bring her shoes. But when Dahi asked the students at school about Ina, Dahi realized that very few students knew her. Some female students even thought that Ina was Hiram's servant. A while later, Dahi met Ina walking with Hiram from the schoolyard. They realized that Hiram was wearing the watch that Ina stole and Ina's shoes. They asked Ina to go somewhere else to talk. They said that Ina's strange behavior lately was because of her friend Harim, right? Dahi said that if I didn't tell the truth, Dahi would report this to Ina's family. Ina threatened that if Dahi did that, Ina would denounce Dahi as a scammer to everyone. Dahi was surprised by that statement. Ina said that I kept this a secret because I wanted my grandmother to suffer some consequences for her habit of relying on her superpowers. Moreover, this was the first time Ina had seen a scammer in real life, so she found it interesting. Then, to increase the persuasiveness, Ina took off glasses and looked straight into Dahi's eyes, and said that her 2 previous marriages were also scams. The first time was to take revenge on Dahi's mother, who abandoned her children to follow another man. The second time was to take revenge on her alcoholic father. But the third time, Dahi did not continue like that because she was controlled by her emotions. Dahi went from surprise to panic. Ina saw all of Dahi's thoughts. Dahi also knew that Ina had hidden her ability all along. Dahi tremblingly called Hang Tai and said that everything had been exposed. This family of superpowers was real, and they absolutely could not deceive this family. When Dahi was convincing Hang Tai to believe her, she suddenly saw Guiju at school. Dahi panicked and ran in another direction. She accidentally ran into the school gym's warehouse. Very quickly, someone locked the warehouse because they thought there was no one inside, so she was locked inside. Dahi called him Tai to ask her uncle to pick her up. Suddenly, the phone ran out of battery. Dahi used all her strength to call for help and find a way out but failed. She also fell to the floor when trying to climb up the window. This scene was exactly like 13 years ago, when she was also locked in the school warehouse by her friends. They said that if at least one person in the school noticed Dahi missing, they would release her. But that day, no one noticed Dahi's absence in class, not even the teacher. Suddenly, a fire broke out in the school, and everyone ran out in panic. Dahi was locked inside. Hearing the noise and smoke, she was scared and called for help, and tried to find a way out. In the end, she fell down and intended to give up. Back in the present, Guiju opened the gym's warehouse door and saved her. Dahi cried and recounted her accident 13 years ago. At that time, she was locked in the 5th floor warehouse when the incident happened. Guiju recalled the moment he returned to the past. A group of female students begged their senior to run into the 5th floor warehouse to save someone. And it turned out that person was Dahi. Guiju seemed to realize something. He affirmed that he would save her. Hearing that, Dahi immediately recalled the past. Although she couldn't remember the face of the person who saved her, she knew that the man had a wound on his neck. But now Guiju didn't have that wound. She thought that Guiju wasn't the one who saved her. After helping Dahi out of there, Guiju received a phone call from Ina's homeroom teacher. Dahi took the opportunity to rush home and told Hyung Tai the truth about Guiju's family with superpowers. Of course, he didn't believe her. He even thought that she had feelings for Guiju, so she made an excuse not to participate in this scam. While the two were talking, Mrs. Lee Hong walked in and asked about the progress. Dahi said that after Mrs. Lee Hong appeared in their family, their attitude towards her had completely changed. Dahi suggested that they should have a plan to withdraw from that family. Guiju met the teacher to ask why Ina took the watch. The teacher explained that the watch was a birthday gift from Ina to Hiram. The two girls were close friends. Moreover, Hiram treated Ina very well. Hiram even invited Ina to join the dance club. That information made Guiju feel extremely surprised. He realized that he didn't know anything about girls before. After that, Ina was taken home by Guiju. In the car, Guiju kept asking about what happened at school, but Ina didn't care to answer. Because she was busy replying to messages with Hiram. Hiram texted Ina, asking if she thought she was bullying Ina. Because the homeroom teacher called Ina in and asked. Ina quickly apologized to Hiram and affirmed that she always considered Hiram a close friend. Guiju tried to talk to his daughter, but Ina was angry at him for going to her school and talking to the homeroom teacher. Dahi suggested that she wanted to talk to Guiju, so Guiju went home to look for Dahi. Couldn't find her at home. So he went to the sauna and asked for her whereabouts. Han Tai showed Guiju where Dahi was. Thanks to that, he successfully found her. Guiju then asked Dahi to find out why Ina stole Mrs. Manhom's watch. Dahi refused to help him and suggested that they should not see each other again. She gave the excuse that she was scared when she saw the superpowered family showing off their powers, so she left. Dahi also insisted that he wasn't the one who saved her. She also asked him to move her belongings back home. But Guiju still believed that he was the one who saved her. So after that, he worked out hard, quit drinking, and cooked breakfast for Ina. The family was surprised by his change. Guiju then secretly followed Dahi to the sauna. Because of Guiju's persistence, Dahi agreed to meet Ina at his request. The two met at a coffee shop. As soon as they met, Ina asked Dahi if you had told my father about me stealing Mrs. Manholm's watch. Seeing Dahi staying silent and not answering, Ina asked. Dahi said that she thought Ina could read minds, so she didn't say anything. Ina said that she needed to look into the other person's eyes to read minds. Seeing Dahi deny telling her father about the watch, Ina took off her glasses and looked straight into Dahi's eyes to check. After confirming that Dahi had not told her father about the watch, Ina was relieved. Ina asked Dahi to come back to her house and promised not to reveal that Dahi was a scammer to anyone. Regarding Ha Rim, Ina said that she did it voluntarily and hoped that the family wouldn't worry. Day met Guiju again outside the car and told him not to worry because Ina had been lonely for a long time. And this is the first time she has a friend, so she wants to indulge her friend a little. However, Guiju still has to keep an eye on Ina. Because Ina might steal other things, so instead of saving her, he should save his daughter first. Guiju admits that he doesn't know how to be a good father. He promises to save Dahi and Ina. In the following days, Guiju still actively wakes up early to exercise in the morning. Mr. Sun Woo is very happy because his son's depression has improved. He comes to tell Mrs. Manhan the good news, but now she is extremely depressed because her insomnia has become serious again. The reason is that since the day she found out that Dahi's adoptive mother is a scammer, plus Dong Hee's confirmation that Dahi is a scammer, she has been sleepless for the past few days. Mrs. Man Hong came up with an idea. She told Dong Hee to go find out about that sauna. Dong Hee obeyed her mother. She pretended to be a customer and followed Mrs. Lee Hong. Suddenly, Dong Hee saw Grace appear and talk intimately with Mrs. Lee Hong. Dong Hee was surprised that they were mother and daughter. Seeing this, Dong Hee was about to go up and expose it but was stopped by Mrs. Lee Hong and offered to scrub her back. Meanwhile, Grace quickly ran away. When she got home, Dong Hee told her family what she saw, and she concluded that they were part of a group of scammers. Dong Hee also saw Grace enter the hotel with her boyfriend. They must have done that to plot to marry Guiju, get the 50 billion building. This time, Mrs. Hum began to suspect. But Guiju affirmed that Dahi could be his future wife. After saying that, he returned to the past under everyone's surprised eyes. Mr. Sununu explains that Guiju's ability has been restored since he met Dahi. Not only that, he can also touch Dahi when he returns to the past. Mrs. Manham and her daughter are surprised by this information. Elsewhere, Ina goes to an amusement park with a group of friends from a dance club. Hai Rim is trying to take a photo with Ina's boyfriend, but the boyfriend sees Ina standing alone, so he proactively invites Ina to take a photo with Hiram. Ina looks at the happy family with sadness. Suddenly, her boyfriend walks up and gives Ina cotton candy. Hiram asks Ina to take Ina's boyfriend to the merry-go-round. Hiram whispers to Ina that she will confess to Ina's boyfriend here. When Ina brings her boyfriend, she waits for Hiram to return, but doesn't see him. Suddenly, Ina's boyfriend confesses to her, which makes Ina very embarrassed. The girl didn't want to lose her friendship with Hiram. From afar, Hiram saw everything. Hiram looked at Ina with hatred. Guiju continued to follow Dahi to the sauna and asked her to teach him how to cook seaweed soup. Dahi tried to chase Guiju away but failed. Not only that, Mrs. Lee Hong also entered and asked Dahi to teach Guiju how to cook soup. At the same time, Mr. Sun Guo and his wife also arrived. Mrs. Manhom saw Gui peeling garlic and was so startled that she almost fainted. She was then led into the sauna. When she looked at the dirty sauna, she wanted to leave, but in the end, she still agreed to sleep there under Mrs. Lee Hong's massage. While waiting for Mrs. Manhom to wake up, Mr. Sun Gu and Guiju ate at the sauna. While eating, Dahe was always worried. She was afraid that Mrs. Would dream something. Sure enough, not long after, Mrs. Woke up in a panic and went straight home. She left everyone in a confused state of mind. When she got home, she warned Guiju not to go to the sauna again. But Guiju refused. He insisted that he definitely wanted to get married. Seeing that she could not stop her son, Mrs. Manholm agreed to let her son marry Dahi. So the next day, Guiju went to the sauna to propose to Dahi with flowers. Dahi was surprised and couldn't believe it. Dahi said that he didn't need to try to save her. She was still living well in front of him. Guiju said that because she was alive, it gave him hope that one day he would save her. That hope helped him try every day. Then he gave her the bouquet. That night, Dae's family celebrated for successfully fooling Guiju's family. But during the party, Dahi didn't seem happy. She found an excuse to go to her room and go to bed early. Mrs. Lee Hong knew what Dahi was thinking, so she went upstairs and said that if Dahi didn't finish this matter, she wouldn't let Dahi live in peace. Ine was asked to meet Hirim. Hirim threw back the shoes Ine gave her, because she was angry about the day they went to the park. Hirim left Ina bewildered, not knowing what she did wrong. She ran home and stole her grandmother's watch. Then the wedding day came. The two mothers smiled and talked happily on the surface, but in their hearts they hated each other. When Mrs. Manholm entered the house, she caught Ina stealing something in her secret place. Mrs. Manholm thought that Ina did it because she was hurt when she saw her father getting a new wife. Mrs. Manholm told Ina to rest assured, after today, no one could take her father away. At the gym, Dong Hee asked Grace to model weightlifting for her. Then Dong Hee gave Grace a very heavy weight and said that she was going to ruin her brother's wedding because she found evidence that Min Da-hee was a scammer. Dong Hee found drugs in Da-hee's room. Grace accidentally said that it was not drugs but sleeping pills. Hearing that, Dong Hee rushed home to search Da Hee's things, leaving Grace stuck with the weight. When Grace escaped, she rushed over to stop Dong Hee's plan. At this time, Dong Hee had found the Baek family heirloom ring hidden in Da Hee's luggage, which would be evidence to expose Da Hee. When Dong Hee was about to go out to tell her mother, she met Grace, and the two struggled for a long time. Dong Hee fell down the stairs, but she was not injured and was floating in the air. Grace looked at that scene with a very surprised face. It turned out that Dong Hee could fly. At the same time, a wedding was being held outside. Guiju held Da Hee's hand, her face showing happiness. Dae remembered Guiju's father telling her about his past. Guiju was always taken back to the moment when Ina was born. At that time, Da Hee's school was also burned down. Therefore, she was Guiju's hope in the present. Remembering this, Da Hee told the truth that she was a scammer. Mrs. Manhome was her third target. Just as Dong Hee predicted, Da Hee put sleeping pills in the tea except for Mrs. Manhome. Everyone was surprised by Dae Hee's actions. That night, Mr. Sun Goo's family was cleaning up after the wedding. Dong Hee asked why her mother knew everything but didn't tell the family, making her waste time buying the most expensive real flowers. When Mr. Sun Gu spoke up to protect Da Hee, Mrs. Man Hoi and Dong Hee continuously scolded Da Hee. Guiju kept going back to the moment of the two people's wedding. After Da Hee left, Guiju immediately chased after her. Suddenly Grace and Dong Hee ran over. Both of them argued. Grace said that Dong Hee could fly, while Dong Hee said that Da Hee's family was a scammer. Mrs. Lee Hong looked at Mrs. Man Hong's reaction and realized that she didn't seem surprised at all. Mrs. Man Hong also declared that if Da Hee's family kept their ability a secret, she would also ignore the fact that Da Hee's family had scammed her family. At the same time, Guiju asked Da Hee if she said everything was a scam, would she lie about him saving her from the fire 13 years ago? Da Hee admitted that it was a lie. Suddenly, she saw Guiju from the future coming. She looked at both of them in surprise, then Guiju returned to the present. He tore up the marriage certificate. At the sauna, Mrs. Lee Hong questioned Da Hee about why she did that today. Da Hee only said that she stopped this scam. This time, everyone in Mrs. Drake Lee Hong's family began to believe that Mrs. Ma Hong's family had supernatural powers. From that day on, Sun Gu's family began to see changes in Guiju. He kept going back to the past suddenly, which made the whole family worried because they didn't know his whereabouts. Ine was sleeping in class when her boyfriend came and asked her to go eat spicy noodles. Ine refused. Her boyfriend said that Hiram was also going. At the same time, Hiram came and asked Ina to go eat and took off her glasses. Thanks to that, Ina read Hiram's mind. Hiram thought that Ina shouldn't go with them. Realizing that Hiram was lying, Ina pushed Hiram hard and ran out while her classmates mocked her. Everyone thought Hiram was generous, but Ina didn't know what was going on. Ina dropped her glasses in class and forgot to take them back. Her boyfriend picked them up. Ina ran out into the street and almost got into an accident. People around her ran to help her, but with her ability, Ina knew that they were being annoying and cursed her inwardly. Ina felt scared and miserable. She immediately ran to the bathhouse to find Da Hee, but Da Hee wasn't home. Ina was greeted by Mrs. Lee Hong and Hyung Tai. Mrs. Lee Hong took the initiative to offer Ina rice water and eggs. She wanted to investigate Ina, but the girl was very smart, so she didn't reveal anything. So Mrs. Lee Hong opened the door for Da Hee to go down. Mrs. Lee Hong said to take advantage of Ina at this time. If Da Hee does this well, she might forgive Da Hee for ruining the wedding. It turns out that Da Hee was locked up for ruining the plan. Da Hee goes to talk to Ina. Ina realizes that Da Hee is locked up, so Da Hee covers her eyes and talks to her. Ina says that she lost her glasses and that she accidentally looked into someone else's eyes, so she was very scared. Da Hee is the only person Ina isn't scared to see when losing her glasses. Because she feels uncomfortable, Da Hee takes the initiative to take Ina to buy new glasses. The two pass by Mrs. Lee Hong and she holds Ina back, so Ina reads her mind. After the two buy glasses, Dae calls Guiju to pick Ina up. Ina sees this and warns Da Hee that she read Mrs. Lee Hong's mind earlier. If Dae lets Ina go now, Mrs. Lee Hong won't let Da Hee be at peace. Dae ignored Ina's words and still took Ina back to Guiju. Seeing Ina with the person who had deceived his family, Guiju worriedly asked Ina if she was okay. Ina just said that she had come to Da Hee herself and that Da Hee had fed her and bought her a new pair of glasses. Guiju led Ina into the car. Then he went out to talk to Da Hee. Da Hee told her to take good care of Ina. Guiju recounted that 13 years ago, his captain risked his life to save a female student in her school's fire. If he wasn't the one who saved her, then it could be the captain. So Guiju advised Da Hee to live a meaningful life and not let the captain's sacrifice be in vain. After saying that, Guiju left. When Da Hee turned around, she saw the future Guiju smiling. He asked her to take care of herself and pulled her hand to the current Guiju's car. Da Hee felt that the situation was unusual, so she refused his offer. The two struggled for a while, which caught Guiju's attention. After seeing Da Hee's unusual actions, he realized that it seemed like his future self was talking to her. Future Guiju asked Da Hee to pass on the message that Dong Hee was about to be in danger. Guiju needed to go to the gym right away. The two of them rushed there, and sure enough, Dong Hee fell from a high place. It turned out that a few minutes before, Grace wanted to see Dong Hee fly like before, so she turned off all the elevators and left a construction sign on the stairs. At that time, Dong Hee wanted to go down to the first floor because she had an appointment with her lover. She looked down from above and wondered if she should fly, so she climbed the stairs to try flying. Suddenly, Grace appeared and pushed Dong Hee down, hitting Guiju who had just run over. After that fall, Dong Hee looked up and saw Da Hei not far away. Dong Hee thought that Da Hei was the one who did everything. Then, Dong Hee fainted. Da Hei and Guiju immediately took Dong Hee to the hospital because they were afraid that the fall would affect her health. But when they arrived, the doctor concluded that Dong Hee fainted due to excessive weight loss and that there was nothing serious. After Dong Hee woke up, the first thing she did was call her mother to say that she fell down the stairs. Then she saw Da Hei nearby. So Da Hei must have planned this. Before she could finish speaking, Guiju snatched the phone and told Dong Hee everything. Unfortunately, Hong Tai was nearby and heard everything. Outside, In asked Da Hee how she knew Dong Hee would be in danger. Ina threatened to look into Da Hee's eyes and force her to tell the truth that Guiju from the future warned her. Da Hee could see and touch Guiju from the future. Mrs. Manham and Mr. Sun Gu were surprised when Dong Hee told them the news. Mrs. Manham thought that Da Hei had just kidnapped Ina and harmed her daughter. The couple immediately went to the hospital. When they arrived, Mrs. Manham immediately slapped Da Hee hard and told her to stay away from her family. When Da Hei left, Ina protected Da Hee and told what had just happened. Dong Hee returned home safely. She thanked Guiju for helping her. Their relationship was better than before. Ina told Guiju to go save Da Hee. Maybe she was locked up somewhere right now for breaking up the wedding. Hearing that, Guiju felt suspicious. He went back to the past and saw that after Da Hee broke up the wedding, she was slapped hard by Mrs. Li Hong. Then Mrs. Li Hong dragged her into the car. Back to the present at the bathhouse, the whole family was questioning Da Hee because she kept the secret that only she could touch Guiju. When he went back to the past, suddenly someone came to find her. It was Guiju. He came and proposed a deal. He knew Mrs. Li Hong wanted to take advantage of his family's ability to get rich, so he promised to steal future through lottery or stocks to her, on the condition that Da Hei had to stay by his side all the time. Mrs. Li Hong and her family agreed, except for Da Hei. She said that she refused to be with someone who suddenly disappeared, and then suddenly appeared like that. After saying that, she left. Then Guiju went back to the past when they both picked up and the same thing happened. When Guiju disappeared, Da Hei admitted to Mrs. Lam that she did not want to participate in this case because she had feelings for Guiju, so she wanted Mrs. Li Hong to respect her decision. The following days, Guiju continuously followed Da Hei to the bathhouse, even though Da Hei wanted to chase him away. But Mrs. Li Hong's family happily welcomed him. They continued to find another target to scam. This person was a single father. The two made an appointment to meet at a coffee shop. Guiju kept following Da Hei. Sure enough, with just a few words, she successfully fooled the single father. She even intentionally caused the cup on the table to fall and broke, pretending to be worried about the single father. Guiju saw it all from beginning to end. He realized that the wine bottle falling was not his fault, but Da Hei's trick. Guiju couldn't stand it anymore. He walked in front of them and introduced himself as Da Hai's third husband. After saying that, he pulled Da Hai's hand and led her outside. When they reached the door, Da Hai advised him to spend time doing other things instead of following her. Suddenly, Da Hai found another target. She walked up and started to approach him. At this moment, his wife came out. She thought that Da Hai was her husband's new lover and was about to make a scene of jealousy. Luckily, Guiju came over and pulled Da Hai's hand away. Guiju asked her to go eat with him. Da Hai said that if he gave her 10,000 won per hour, she would go. Guiju agreed and took her to a bar, and the two happily talked to each other. Da Hai said that she still felt happy the first time she ate red bean shaved ice or the first time she rode a bike. Suddenly, Guiju returned to the past. At that time, he had just started working as a firefighter and was being reprimanded by his boss for climbing a tree to save a cat. However, in the boss's eyes, he was happy because his subordinate had done a good job, and Guiju smiled at that memory. At this moment, from afar, Guiju saw Mrs. Li Hong and Jin Tai entering the funeral home, which was Da Hei's father's funeral. Mrs. Li Hong took all the condolence money and asked Da Hei to sign the insurance papers. When Da Hei died, the insurance money would belong to her. After the two left, Guiju walked to the funeral and touched Da Hei. Da Hei was surprised at the man in front of her and asked Guiju who he was. Realizing that the man in front of her was not a bad person, Da Hei felt relieved and cried loudly. After Guiju returned home, Ina blocked the stairs and worriedly asked where Da Hei was. She took off her glasses to use her powers and was relieved to know that Da Hei was safe. At the same time, Mr. Sun Guo was drinking at the bar. A beautiful lady came over and listened to him. Then she leaned her head on his shoulder. Suddenly her husband appeared and grabbed Mr. Sun Guo's collar. He threatened to sue Mr. Sun Gu for molesting his wife. Mr. Sun Gu begged him not to make a big deal out of it. Mr. Sun Gu promised to compensate him. At the gym, Dong Hee checked the camera again and found out that Grace was the one who set her up to fall. Just as Grace walked over, Dong Hee angrily chased after Grace and wanted to push Grace down the stairs. Grace said that she pushed Dong Hee down because she thought she would fly and land safely. Grace begged Dong Hee to forgive her this time, and Dong Hee could do whatever she wanted. So Dong Hee forgave her. On this side, Da Hei and Guiju were having an impromptu date under Hong Tai's supervision. Guiju said that he could only go back to the past if the past was a happy memory. So Mrs. Li Hong forced Hang Tai to follow them and did everything she could to make the two of them have a happy date. However, no matter how hard they tried, the two of them still didn't feel happy. Suddenly, Guiju thought of an idea. He suggested that they go with Hen Tai to buy red bean shaved ice in Dahai's hometown. So the two of them took a bus back to her hometown. After buying the shaved ice, Guiyue looked at the lottery ticket tonight and entered the photo studio to go back to the past this afternoon. After waiting for the other two to leave, Guiju walked up to Dahai and gave her a bowl of red bean shaved ice. Dahai's face showed great happiness. 13 years ago, she had intended to steal bread. A woman saw that scene. Not only did she not report Dahai, she also took the initiative to pay for it. Then she offered Dahai some red bean shaved ice, which was the first time Dahai had eaten that. The woman recognized Dahi as the female student from the school that burned down last time, so she did that. Recalling those memories, Dahi cried while enjoying the food. Guiju also gave Dahi the winning lottery ticket and said that it was hers. She should use it to pay off Li Hong's debt. Dahi also said that in her luggage there was a relic left by the person who saved her, which was a ring. She hoped that he could return it to the captain's family. Then Guiju returned under Heng Tai's surprised gaze. Before, when he saw Guiju enter the photo studio, he also entered but did not see Guiju anywhere. Suddenly, Guiju came out of the photo studio, making him extremely shocked. In another development, Dong He's lover came to the appointment with her. Suddenly, he felt that today was strange. On the way he heard familiar music. When he entered the coffee shop, he recognized a familiar scent and a familiar cake. All of this reminded him of the time when he liked Dong He. At that time, Dong He was still a model. He didn't know that Grace had deliberately set up those things to make him remember those things. Then Dong He would come to see him by chance. He told Dong He that today, her image was all that was on his mind. Thought that the two of them would start a love relationship like before. But he only asked if the two of them would get a 50 billion building after getting married. Right? That surprised both girls. Because of that, Dong He continued to lose weight. She believed that after returning to her original model form, her lover would care more about her. Because of overtraining, Dong He fainted. Grace hurriedly took her to the sauna to rest. The two became closer after this incident. At school, In-A was bullied for her actions the day before. They threw In-A's phone to the ground, breaking it. Seeing that, Hong Tai stepped forward to stop them. Only then did the bullies leave. In-A wanted to go back to the sauna to see Dahai again. After returning to the sauna, In-A was depressed because no one played with her. Hem Tai played with In-A. Whoever lost would have their forehead flicked. This stimulated her competitive nature. In-A immediately took off her glasses and played this game, resulting in Hem Tai's forehead being flicked red. This was seen by Mrs. Li Ham, who began to be suspicious. Mrs. Manham then called Dahi out to give her the newly bought car. Mrs. Manham did not forget to tell Dahi to stay away from her family. Dahi gave Mrs. Manham the winning lottery ticket and told her to take this and not let Guiju bother me anymore. After saying that, Dahi left. Mrs. Manham looked at the lottery ticket in surprise. Mrs. Manham then realized that Dahi got this thanks to Guiju's ability. On this side, Mr. Sun Gu tried to find things in the family's secret room to sell to pay for debt. After finding nothing valuable, he went into the bedroom and found his wife sleeping. In one hand she held the family heirloom ring, in the other hand she held the lottery ticket. He realized that the lottery ticket could help him at this time. Mr. Sun Go tiptoed to steal the lottery ticket. When he successfully took the lottery ticket, Mr. Sun Go stepped out and saw Guiju coming in. Guiju asked about Dahi's luggage. Mr. Sun Gu said that he had cleaned them because Mrs. Manham didn't want to see them. Guiju told his father that he was looking for a ring in Dahi's luggage. Mr. Sungu realized something and pointed to the ring Mrs. Lao Manham was holding in her hand. They saw the back family heirloom ring in Dahai's luggage. Mr. Sununu said that the whole family suspected that Dahai stole the ring from the family safe. Hearing that, Guiju hurriedly went down to the safe to check, but the ring was still inside. He took out the ring from Dahai's luggage to compare. Surprisingly, the two rings were identical. At that moment, Guiju realized that the person who saved Dahai was not the captain, but him. So, Guiju called Dahai out and announced that the person who saved her from the fire was him. At the same time, Mrs. Manholm dreamed that her son gave a ring to Dahai in the fire. She woke up in a state of fear. Mrs. Manholm warned her son about her dream. She also told him to stay away from Dahai. But he reassured her and showed her the two rings. He explained everything to her and said that he had saved Dahai from the fire 13 years ago. Hearing what her son said, Mrs. Manham thought about it and realized that the fate between the two of them was still there. So Dahai could be the one to help the Bok family prosper again. Suddenly, she remembered the lottery ticket that won the jackpot and realized that it was no longer there. Because the lottery ticket was sent by Mr. Sun Gu to the person who was blackmailing him. Mr. Sun Gu felt relieved and thought that his wife would not find out. However, when Mr. Sun Gu returned, he found that his wife had been sent a picture of him dancing with someone else in a nightclub by an anonymous person. Mr. Sun Gu explained to the woman that he was just a normal dance partner. Why did the woman's husband take the money and then break the deal? At that moment, Missy Manholm realized that he had taken the lottery ticket to pay the person who was blackmailing him. The two had an argument. Mrs. Manholm shouted that she had been betrayed by him since she could not dream of him. Right. Mr. Sun Gu admitted that he had felt uncomfortable being under her control when she had dreamed of every single thing he did. Mrs. Manholm was disappointed and said that she would free him so he should pack his things and leave the house immediately. When Mr. Sun Gu was about to leave, Ina came and read his mind. She knew where he really went, back to the group of people who blackmailed Sun Gu. It turned out that these people knew Miss Li Hong. They colluded with her to trick Sun Gu. So Miss Li Hong easily got the lottery ticket. When Miss Li Hong brought the lottery ticket home, Da Hei saw the lottery ticket. She knew that her foster mother had committed this scam. Miss Li Hong praised Da Hei for doing a good job with a sarcastic tone. The next day, Da Hei asked Guiju out. She told him that his father was tricked by Mrs. Li Hong for money. So now his father is not home because Mrs. Man Hong chased his father away. This is just the beginning, so she hopes he will stop following her if he doesn't want his family to be broken. Because the person Mrs. Li Hong is targeting might be Mrs. Man Hong. The person who saved her has a scar on his neck, but he doesn't. So that person isn't Guiju. Instead of trying to save her, he should save his family first. Especially his mother, because she has the ability to dream the future. So he went home to find his mother. But she wasn't home. Mrs. Ma Hong was having dinner with Dong He and her lover. The two were presenting the idea that in the future, they would use the building to do a project for a beauty salon and gym. When they got married and inherited the 50 billion building, Mrs. Mon Ham was having a headache because of her husband's problem. When Dong He's boyfriend kept talking nonstop, she coldly asked Dong He, "I heard you say that your boyfriend betrayed you." Dong He's face became sad, and she told her boyfriend to go out. When the two of them were alone, Dong He realized that her father had left the house. She said that her father left because he was upset with her mother's control. Even she had to give up her dream to follow her mother's wishes, including getting married. After saying that, she went out. Then Mrs. Man Hong went out to pay. But for some reason, her card couldn't be paid. While she was wondering what to do, Mrs. Li Hong suddenly appeared and paid the bill for Mrs. Man Hong without hesitation. Then Mrs. Li Hong said that Mrs. Man Hong's complexion didn't look very good. Mrs. Li Hong even invited Mrs. Man Hong to the sauna. At house, Guiyuo searched his father's pocket. Realizing that his father had gone to the dance hall was the direct cause of his father leaving the house. Ina is being bullied by the whole class because of what happened the other day. The classmates said that Ina pretends to be gentle and is also cared for by a gangster uncle. Hiram holds her hand and pretends to care for Ina, but Ina reads Hiram's mind and pushes Hiram away. The homeroom teacher calls Guiju because Ina is absent without permission. He worriedly goes to the sauna to ask Dahi to find Ina with him. They can't call in because her phone is broken. While the two are at a loss, Jin Tai appears and says that he knows the places he often goes to because he often follows her. So he intakes the two to the places she often goes. Ina often eats instant noodles alone, drinks coffee alone, and goes to the park to play with her phone alone. But they can't find Ina in those places. The three of them split up to look for Ina. Dahi decides to go to the sauna, while Guiju goes home. When Dahi arrived at the bathhouse, she only saw Li Hong taking Man home, and Ina was not there. Li Hong saw Dahi's expression. She said that she was really worried and wanted to befriend Man because she wanted to bring the two of them together, and had no intention of harming Ma Hong. But Dahi repaid her by bringing the winning lottery ticket to the Bok family instead of giving it to her. Dahi said that Guiju gave Dahi the money to pay off debt and leave Mrs. Li Hong. But Dahi chose to live with Li Hong because she felt sorry for Li Hong. Mrs. Li Hong is always sad because of her dead daughter. But if Mrs. Li Hong dares to do something bad to the Bak family, Dahi is ready to fight back. Then Dahi leaves the sauna despite Mrs. Li Hong's screaming. On this side, Guiju returns home but cannot find Ina. He searches in the drawer and finds a broken phone. At this time, Dahi also arrives. Guiju expresses that he is not a good father for leaving Ina alone for too long and does not understand her psychology. Suddenly, Dahi sees Guiju of the future and is informed by him that Ina is in the school gym. The two immediately run there. At the gym, Ina's classmates are gossiping about her boyfriend leaving the dance club because he confessed to someone in the club but was rejected. The classmates are curious about who that person is. Suddenly, Hiram sees Ina dozing off in the gym's storage room. Hiram is angry about what Ina did to her, so Hiram came up with the idea of punishing Ina. Hiram secretly locked the warehouse door from the outside and trapped Ina inside. When Ina woke up, she was scared when she realized she was locked up. She tried to knock on the door and call for someone but no one heard. Ina was scared, worried, and didn't know what to do. That night, Guiju and Dahi ran to the gym and knocked on the door continuously. It attracted the security guard, so he took the key and successfully rescued Ina. When the three of them went to eat, Ina told Guiju that she couldn't go to school. There were too many eyes watching in the school, which made Guiju confused. Then Ina ran into the bathroom. Dahi ran after her and saw her crying inside. Ina said that she just wanted to fit in with her friends, but she didn't understand why things turned out like this. She would rather be invisible like before. Dahi listened to Ina and she shared that she had experienced a similar situation. Dahi was once locked in a warehouse and no one knew. Then there was a fire, and luckily someone came to save Dahi. Dahi wanted Ina to know that no matter how difficult it was, there would be someone willing to overcome that difficulty to help Ni. In Dahi's encouragement made Ina feel warm and less worried. When Dahi went out, she advised Guiju not to ask too many questions about school later. Instead, he just needed to look into Ina's eyes and he would have the answer. Then the father and daughter went to the park. Guiju invited In-A to drink coffee. He knew this was his daughter's favorite drink after Heng Tai told him, but In-A brushed it away, causing the coffee cup to spill. Worried about his daughter, Guiju took off his glasses and offered to clean them. That action made In and Guiju look at each other. In-A read her father's thoughts about her. Guiju apologized for leaving In alone all this time. Guiju wanted to make it up to her in the future and spend more time with her. She had read all of his thoughts. This time, Guiju realized that In-A's superpower was to read other people's thoughts when looking into their eyes. In-A said that she didn't want him to go back to the moment she was born, because that moment had made both her father and mother suffer. Guiju realized that In-A's ability was to read other people's thoughts, which was why In-A always avoided other people's eyes. Going back 7 years ago, when In-A's mother was driving, In-A's mother accidentally made eye contact with her. In-A read her mother's thoughts, saying that she was born on the day of the fire. In-A innocently asked her mother if her birth was wrong. In-A's mother was surprised by In-A question, so she drove and got into an accident. From then on, In-A always thought that her birth was a mistake. That made In-A feel guilty all this time. After learning about his daughter's situation, Guiju hugged In-A and kept apologizing for not knowing her thoughts. He said the moment she was born had a very special meaning to him. This time, In-A saw someone who, when she looked into her eyes, she was no longer afraid of that person. On the contrary, she felt warmer. That was her father. Then Guiju helped In-A learn to ride a bike. When I was able to ride a bike, Dahi, Guiju and I were all very happy. At the sauna, Mrs. Manhoon woke up and told her dream that Mrs. Li Hong's eldest daughter was still alive. Mrs. Li Hong will soon hug the child and cry and say that it was lucky that her child was still alive. It turned out that Dahe had met Mrs. Man Hong before and told that Mrs. Li Hong had a daughter, but she died when she was young while Mrs. Li Hong was in prison. If Mrs. Man Hong talked about Mrs. Hong's dead daughter, Mrs. Man Hong would have the initiative and Mrs. Li Hong would waver. In another development, Dong He was climbing stairs under Grace's training to lose weight. Then the two went to the rooftop. Grace asked Dong He to let her fly with her ability, but Dong He refused. While riding her bike, In-A met her boyfriend again. She was flustered and was about to leave, but her boyfriend called her back and gave her a pair of glasses. Her boyfriend said that if In-A hated him so much, he would try his best to avoid them when they met at school. After saying that, her boyfriend left. Suddenly, In expressed his feelings for her boyfriend, surprising him. At the same time, Guiju and Dahi were talking to each other. Guiju realized that Dahi knew about In's ability. Suddenly, Guiju returned to the moment In-A was born. Looking at his family before his eyes, Guiju felt extremely happy. When he returned, he said that he would save Dai. After that, Guiju took out 2 rings and put them on both of their hands. This time Guiju admitted that he liked her. The two looked at each other and kissed passionately. Meanwhile, Mrs. Manhum was having a nightmare about Guiju. Mrs. Manhum went to the dance hall where her husband was sitting and shouted his name, forcing him to leave. After seeing her husband, Mrs. Manhum panicked and said that he and his son might die. Dai returned to the Bok family. The whole family welcomed her. They had lunch together in an uncomfortable atmosphere. Guiju didn't notice it. He happily said that it felt like a dream when the whole family had dinner like this. It turned out that Mrs. Manhum had come to Dahi before and told about her dream. In it, their family was holding a funeral for Guiju. It was a funeral without a body. So it was possible that 13 years ago, he saved Dahi and died in that fire. Hearing this, Dahi wanted to stop Guiju from going back to the past. But Mrs. Manhoim said that she tried to change her dream when she learned that her father had died but failed. So she wanted Guiju to be happy in her last moments, even if she had to rely on a scammer. So she asked Dahe to return to her house to help Guiju have happy times. At school, everyone knew that Hiram had intentionally locked in the warehouse. This time, Hiram was shunned by her friends for living a fake life, while Ina and her boyfriend were now a couple. Hiram went to Ina and explained that she didn't do that. However, Ina replied that Hiram should hide her feelings well. Now everyone knows Hiram's evil nature. After saying that, Ina ran towards her boyfriend, leaving Hiram standing alone and sad. At home, Guiju suggested to his father that he wanted the whole family to move to a smaller house, because the family currently couldn't afford the expenses of living in such a big house. Mr. Soon Gu wanted to refuse because this house was the house where the Bok family had lived for generations. Suddenly, Mrs. Manhum appeared and agreed to Guiju's request. Then, she signaled him to enter the room. It turned out that the two of them had made a pact to return for their son. When the time came for Guiju to die, they would divorce. Mrs. Manhum wanted Mr. Sun Gu and Dong He to keep this secret from Guiju. The 50 billion house would also belong to Dong He. Everyone was heartbroken when they learned that Guiju was about to die and Guiju wanted to go back to the moments. In-A was born to save Dahe, but she stopped him. She wanted him to save her 13 years ago when they got married. At the bathhouse, Mrs. Li Hong had prepared a plot. It turned out that Tai was not Li Hong's husband, but Mrs. Li Hong's younger brother. Right now, Dahi did not know her adoptive mother's plot. She was enjoying happy days with Guiju and Ina. Only In-A and Guiju did not know that Guiju would die if he returned to save Dahi. 5 days later, Guiju and Dahi drove to the sea together. The two happily talked about a movie and argued about what color shirt the female lead was wearing. They both bet that whoever lost would have to fulfill a condition given by the other. When Guiju was about to check online, Dahe advised him to go back to the moment he watched the movie to confirm, and he happily agreed. Unexpectedly, when he returned, the car got into an accident. Dahe disappeared. The police came to rescue Guiju and looked for Dahe. They thought that Guiju was so scared that he didn't remember anything about the accident. The truth was that when the accident happened, he was in the past and couldn't give a detailed statement to the police. The police searched all day, and in the end, they only found a jacket that Guiju bought for Dahe. Guiju held the jacket and cried, so he was abandoned again. The next morning, the police left Guiju alone there. A few days later, he went to the bathhouse to ask Mrs. Li Hong about it. He thought she had staged Dahe's disappearance as an accident, but she denied it and cried out in pain, asking why he couldn't have prevented the accident when he had superpowers. In the following days, Guizhou continued to get drunk. He regretted not being able to prevent the accident. The whole family was sad. Everyone wondered why this accident happened exactly like 7 years ago. Dong he thought that if this happened, to prevent Guizhou from going back to the past, it would be a blessing. Mrs. Manham saw this as an opportunity for Guizhou not to go back to the past. She went to Guizhou and convinced him that losing his ability might be a gift from their ancestors. Dong He was trying on wedding dresses. She had successfully lost weight. Her boyfriend was very happy and kept urging her to hold the wedding, even though she wanted to postpone it because Guiju was having problems, but he still didn't care. When he went out, he called another girl to promise to give her a floor in Dong He's building. It turned out that his philandering nature had not changed. At the junkyard, Guiju was still trying to find the car that had the accident, looking for information about Da He's disappearance. That made everyone feel annoyed. Dong He and Ina also came. Dong He advised him to let go of the past and accept the truth. After Dong He left, Ina recounted that there was a time when she looked into Dahi's eyes, but she saw that Dahi was singing the national anthem. It seemed that Dahi was hiding something, so Guiju tried to go back to the past. He returned to the exact moment when the two were lying in bed. He told Dahi to absolutely not drive to the beach on a rainy day, otherwise she would have an accident. Then he returned to the present and realized that nothing had changed. Both wondered why Guiju had warned her, but Dahi still accepted the trip. Ine said that maybe Dahi knew she had an accident, but for some reason she still went despite Guiju's warning. Then Ine went to the sauna to find Hong Tai. That was the only clue at the moment. Seeing Hong Tai outside the door, Ine tried to ask about Dahi, but Hong Tai avoided her. He put on sunglasses because he knew Ine's ability and went into the sauna. Mrs. Li Hong heard Ine's conversation. Hong Tai explained that Ine was just talking nonsense. Mrs. Li Hong asked Heng Tai if he had finished handling it. Heng Tai confirmed that he had finished handling it, but she asked why after that. Heng Tai went to the beach again. Heng Tai replied that he wanted to take a walk. Mrs. Li Hong asked to check Heng Tai's call history. Seeing nothing, she became suspicious and forced Heng Tai to go to the beach he had been to. Before Heng Tai took Mrs. Li Hong away, he made eye contact with Ine. Thanks to that, Ine knew that Dahi was still alive and where her current address was. Ine hurriedly ran home and reported to Guiju that Dahi was still alive. It turned out that the last time Dahi met Mrs. Man home, she realized that in order to save Guiju, everyone had to prevent Guiju from returning to the past. So Dahi told Mrs. Mannheim that she would fake her death so that Guiju could not use his ability. Only Hyung Tai knew about this detailed plan. Dahi begged Hong Tai to help her and said that this was her last scam. So on the day of the accident, Dahi suggested that Guizhou return to the past. After he left, she and Hong Tai deliberately staged the scene as if there was a car accident. Then she threw her shirt into the river and the two left. Back in the present, Dahi was at the beach. A moment later, Guiju came looking for her. Dahi saw Guiju and ran away worriedly, but he caught up with her and asked why she lied about her death. At this point, Dahi could only tell him the truth. At this time, no one in his house saw him, so they were very worried. Ina ran out and said that Guiz was looking for Dahi. Mrs. Was very scared when she heard. Ina saw Mrs. Manam's strange reaction. She took off her glasses and read Mrs. Manam's thoughts. This time, both Ina and Guiz realized that there was a possibility that Guiju would die if they returned. They both realized that Dahi did everything just to keep Guiju safe. Even if he had to live in torment, she would die. Guiju was not happy was okay as long as it kept him alive. Guiju said that it was thanks to meeting her that he was able to escape from his long-standing depression. If he had not saved her in the past, he would not have been happy either. The two hugged and kissed passionately, spending a happy time at the beach. The next day, Guiju went to buy breakfast and met Mrs. Li Hong and Hong Tai there. When she saw Guiju buy 2 portions, she was sure Dahi was still alive. But she wondered why Dahi would trick Guiju just to run away from her. Guiju said that Dahi was running away from him, not from her, and he explained that he would go back in time to save Dahi from the fire 13 years ago, and he could have died in that fire. So Dahi faked his death to keep him alive. Dahi woke up and didn't see Guiju. She panicked and ran out of the house and see Guiju come back after buying food. Only then did Dahi breathe a sigh of relief. After that, the two of them had breakfast together on the beach. Dahi looked at Guiju's neck, which still had no scar, and she felt relieved. Dahi said that everyone in the house knew about this, except for Ine, but maybe she would know soon too. Sure enough, when the two returned, Ine was sad because she knew everything. She blamed herself for revealing and ruining Dahai's plan. Then she went upstairs. Dong Hee looked for Guiju to talk. Dong Hee recounted that many years ago she was a very famous supermodel. So she had the opportunity to perform at the last, which was the most prestigious position on the catwalk. However, Mrs. Manham stopped Dong Hee, saying that she had a dream that the last performer fell to the floor and was seriously injured. Therefore, Dong Hee did not go to the catwalk, so someone else had to perform in her place with shoes made specifically for Dong Hee. Because the shoes did not fit, the unfortunate girl fell and landed on the floor just as Mrs. Manham said. Dong Hee realized that she had made the wrong decision. She regretted and was sad. Her dream of becoming a model disappeared, and since then, Dong Hee has been eating constantly and has become so fat. On this side, Mrs. Manham thanks Dahi. Through this, Mrs. Manham knows that Dahi has been wholeheartedly helping Guiju. Dahi convinces Mrs. That she will find another way to prevent Guiju from returning to the past. This time, Mrs. Man advises Dahi to follow her dream because if Miss dreams, it will definitely come true. This ability is not a good thing, it is a curse because she always dreams of bad luck for her children. Mrs. Manham said that recently she dreamed of Dong Hee and another woman with messy hair in Dong Hee's and husband's bridal chamber. So she thought that they were fighting. So she thought that Dong Hee's marriage would not be happy. However, she could not tell her daughter. Because Dong Hee had previously followed Mrs. Manham's dream, her supermodel career was ruined. Da Hei understood everything. Da Hei went to In-A's room and saw her blaming herself. They said that everyone in the family was born with superpowers. But instead of being grateful, the whole family tried to hide it and thought it was a curse. So Day comforted In-A that she would turn that curse into something good. The next day, Dong Hee's fiancé took her to see a new apartment. He excitedly introduced the apartment, constantly talking about how much time and effort he had spent looking for this beautiful apartment. When Dong Hee mentioned that they would not buy this apartment but live with her family, he looked unhappy and said that living like that was not convenient for Dong Hee. He quickly urged Dong Hee to buy the apartment as their newlywed home. He also bragged that the deposit here was a bit high, but he convinced the owner to lower the price. That left Dong Hee speechless. He had an affair with his mistress, which was discovered by Da Hei. Da Hei took a photo of Dong Hee's fiancé cheating. Then she sent the photo on his phone and threatened him. He had to give her 200,000 or he had to cancel the wedding with Dong Hee and disappear. He refused and took back his phone to delete the photo. Young Tai suddenly appeared, pulled his shirt, and made him not dare to touch Da Hei anymore. Then Da Hei bought milk for Hong Tai and asked him if he was okay. Mrs. Li Hong knew he lied to protect Da Hei. Hong Tai only replied that he should not interfere in other people's family matters. Da Hei refused, saying that if it weren't for Guiju 13 years ago, she would have died in the fire. Young Tai went home and reported the incident to Mrs. Li Hong. She realized that both Da Hei and Guiju tried to save each other. She called Grace and asked them both to help Da Hei kick Dong Hee's boyfriend out of the house. At Guiju's house, he visited Dong Hee and found out that his sister was secretly eating snacks. Dong Hee was sad because her powers had not returned, even though she tried to lose weight. Guizhou went back to the past when the two sisters were young. At that time, little Guiju was in the hospital because of malnutrition. He didn't even want to eat rice, so Dong Hee, who was a chubby girl, ate Guiju's rice. Seeing her sister eating deliciously, Guiju expressed that he wanted to eat rice too. So Dong Hee fed him, and the two sisters laughed and talked happily. At that time, Dong Hee flew everywhere, regardless of her weight. Therefore, Guiyu realized that it wasn't her weight that hindered Dong Hee's superpowers. She could fly because she was happy. So he told Dong Hee to break up with her boyfriend because she herself was not happy in this marriage. However, Dong Hee was still hesitant. The next day, Dong Hee's fiancé found a place to borrow money to get the full $200. When he was depressed and didn't know where to find money, King Tai approached him and introduced him to a place to borrow money. After Dong Hee's boyfriend had enough $200, he gave it to Da Hee, which surprised her. So her plan failed. As soon as he left, Grace went to Da Hee and said, "I'm glad you're alive." Grace convinced Da Hee to let her join the scam. Grace didn't want to see Dong Hee broken down because of that terrible boyfriend. So when the group discovered that Dong Hee's fiancé brought his mistress to the newlywed house to have an affair, Grace immediately took Dong Hee there. After Dong Hee saw everything, he knelt down and apologized to Dong Hee. But she didn't forgive him and insisted on breaking up. Dong Hee also canceled the house contract and demanded the money he still owed her. At that time, Da Hee appeared with 200.011 and said that she had already asked for money for Dong Hee. When he saw them acting friendly with each other, he realized that he had been tricked. He immediately chased after the two girls to get the money back. In the process, he accidentally pushed Grace down the stairs. Dong Hee saw that scene, she didn't think much, and rushed down despite the worry that her ability might be exposed. And successfully saved Grace. Grace looked at Dong Hee with grateful eyes. The two of them excitedly flew around the city. After returning, both of their hair were messed up by the wind. Day realized that this scene was exactly like Mrs. Manham's dream. However, the two of them cried out of happiness. What Mrs. Manham dreamed of was not entirely true. The three girls hugged each other happily. However, Dong Hee's ex-boyfriend saw everything. He opened his phone and recorded Dong Hee flying in the sky. Dong Hee brought money back to her mother and exclaimed that she almost fell. Da Hee told her everything that happened to Dong Hee. They affirmed that thanks to Mrs. Man Ho's dream, they had time to prepare in advance, so everyone had more hope of saving Guiju. The whole family laughed and talked happily. On the other side, In was invited by Guiju to the amusement park. The father and daughter had a happy moment together. Guiju bought cotton candy for his daughter. He said that he would save Da Hee and make everyone happy. And the moment Ina was born was the best gift for him. So he advised Ina not to be insecure about herself. Ina's ability is a great ability. This solved the problem that had been in her heart for so long. The father and daughter hugged each other emotionally. At this time, Da Hee returned to the sauna to see her mother. At that moment, Mrs. Man Ho also arrived. Mrs. Lee Hong gave Mrs. Man Ho the winning lottery ticket and told her to let Guiju and Da Hee get married. Hearing this, Da Hee was extremely surprised. She realized that her mother was the mastermind behind the scam of Dong Hee's ex-boyfriend last time. Da Hee returned to the bathroom and asked Mrs. Lee Hong why she did that. Mrs. Lee Hong admitted that when she heard that Da Hee had died, she felt extremely regretful. Then she hugged Da Hee and tearfully shared that she did not expect the mother-daughter relationship to be so close and deep. After all the years they had been together, she said that it was fortunate that Da Hee was still alive. So Mrs. Man Hyen's dream came true. Mrs. Lee Hong congratulated Da Hee on having a husband's family who truly loved her. Mrs. Lee Hong told Da Hee to live happily with Guizhou. Da Hee was moved to hear those words. She did not expect her adoptive mother to truly care about her. That night, Guizhou treated the family to the fish dish that Mr. Sun Gu had made. The whole family felt nostalgic. Guizhou revealed that he had returned to the past and learned Mr. Sun Gu's cooking recipe. Everyone was happy because he knew how to use his ability at school. Ina and her friends were busy practicing dancing to participate in an upcoming competition. Hiram was no longer in the dance group because she was shunned. However, Ina sincerely wished for Hiram to return. Mrs. Continued to have nightmares about that fire. When she woke up in panic, Mr. Sun Gu brought her a glass of water and offered to play a song for her. Then Mrs. Went out and saw her husband practicing dancing. He invited her to dance to the melodious music. Thanks to that, the two of them were no longer angry with each other. Guiju saw his parents happy from afar. His face involuntarily smiled. At this moment, he returned to the past when his parents were young. The two were dancing together. Everyone was colorless. Suddenly, a colorful little girl ran past. She was Da Hee when she was young. Guiju followed the girl for a while. He realized that she was being teased by her friends because she didn't know how to ride a bike. So Guiju stepped forward and held the bike for her. That moment made both of them happy. Little Da Hee was happy and didn't notice that someone was helping her behind. Suddenly, the surroundings became colorful. Guiju was surprised. This was the first time he had returned to the past so vividly. While helping little Da Hee, he accidentally got injured by a tree branch. When he returned home, Guiju discovered that, because of the tree branch in the past, his neck had a scar. Knowing that his time was running out, Guiju held back his grief and went to eat with his family. The next day, when he went to the pharmacy to ask about his scar, the pharmacist guessed that he was allergic to plants, and that it would heal quickly in half a day to a week. So his time left was at most a week. In class, Ina saw Hiram being bullied. Ina approached Hiram and suggested that she join the dance club in the upcoming competition. With her ability, Ina knew that Hiram was looking forward to this performance. Ina also wanted to make up with Hiram. Hiram refused but was very grateful. At the gym, Grace and Hong Tai arrived. Grace said that she wanted to introduce Hong Tai to Dong Hee. Although Dong Hee liked Hong Tai at first sight, she still said that she didn't want to get to know anyone at this time. This made Grace feel strange. Grace replied that Hong Tai came here to apply for the coach position, not to date. Grace's answer made Dong Hee extremely embarrassed. When she looked closely at Hong Tai's face, Dong Hee realized that he was a food delivery man. His delivery method made her very satisfied because he always kept the food intact, not broken or cold. That made her really like Hong Tai. Grace exclaimed that Dong Hee's taste in lovers was very unique. Dong Hee's ex-lover was also present at the gym not far away. When he found out the truth that he was deceived, he was extremely angry. That night, he went to see Dong Hee and begged her to come back to him, otherwise he would post the video of her flying online. Dong Hee said that those videos could be made with editing software. After saying that, Dong Hee left. He intended to chase after her, but at that moment, Hyung Tai came and scared him. Hyung Tai threw his phone into the pond and left, leaving him to search for it. Mrs. Manham continued to dream about the fire. So she told Guiju that she saw a clock falling from the wall, and there were people struggling in the air during the fire. So Guiju met coworker to investigate it, but the coworker said that he had not remembered anything about the fire for 10 years. Guiju asked coworker to find the report on the fire, and he agreed. Recently, Da Hee noticed that Guiju was wearing a turtleneck, even though it was very hot. When he fell asleep, she lifted his shirt and realized that he had a scar on his neck. Da Hee knew that Guiju's time was running out. Suddenly, Guiju woke up and asked her to keep this a secret from everyone. He said that he got the scar when he went back in time. Before, he couldn't touch anything, but now it happened. So Da Hee realized that the fire 13 years ago could really cost him his life. The two hugged each other in despair. Mrs. Monham told Dong Hee that she dreamed of her flying in front of everyone at an A's upcoming performance. However, Dong Hee didn't care about what she said. Dong Hee still decided to go there to cheer for In A. When the family arrived at an A school, they unexpectedly met Mrs. Lee Hong's family, who also came to cheer for her. The two families walked into the auditorium together. On the other side, Guiju and Da Hee bought flowers for In A. Suddenly, Guiju received information that there was a report of a fire that day. He asked Da Hee to deliver the flowers to In A first. Then Guiju ran to his colleague and was shown a map of the school. Da Hee went in to give flowers to In A. In A was uneasy and worried when Guiju did not come. Dong Hee received a text message from her ex-lover. He sent a photo saying that he was with In A. Then he asked Dong Hee to go to the waiting room on the 4th floor. Because she was worried about In A, Dong Hee went up there, as he said. When Dong Hee arrived, he unexpectedly prepared roses and candles to confess to her. His purpose was to win her affection, which made Dong Hee feel extremely disgusted. Currently, In A was worried behind the set. When she saw Guiju coming, she felt relieved. However, Hiram still hadn't appeared when the other group's performance was almost over. When the group was about to perform without Hiram arrived at that moment. The group put aside their previous grudges and happily pulled Hiram into the group. Then the group went on stage. Because I was so nervous, she stood there. Seeing that the boyfriend came over and took off In A's glasses. The boyfriend knew that In A was nervous about appearing in front of so many people. He then encouraged In A, and thanks to the boyfriend's words, In A felt more confident. The group performed very well. On stage, In A thought to send Guiju that she had made good friends. Now In A was no longer seen as invisible, so she didn't want Guiju to worry about her anymore. After the group took a photo, In A realized that Hiram had gone out to the stairs. She went over and talked to Hiram. In A said that she really wanted to be friends with Hiram. Why did Hiram hate her so much? Hiram blamed In A for not being sincere with her. Why did they both like the same person, but In A didn't tell her anything? Because of that, Hiram felt that In A did not consider her a friend. Hearing this, In A told Hiram that she had the superpower to read other people's thoughts. Hiram replied that she also had the superpower, which was to attract other people's gazes. Day looked at Guiju and suddenly realized that the clothes he was wearing were very familiar. Memories flooded back. She remembered that those were the clothes he wore the day he appeared in the past to inform her about In's location in the gym. So she told Guiju that. Guiju immediately went out to return to the past. He told Day that after he finished reporting In's location, he would return immediately. Day understood that because Guiju did not have much time left here, so he was in such a hurry. Then he returned to the past to inform Guiju that In A was in the stage warehouse. On the other side, Dong Hee's ex-lover was trying to hold on to her. When she refused, he brought out gasoline and threatened to burn everything down. At this time, there was a group performing somersaults in the air on the stage. Mrs. Monham found this scene very familiar. She realized that her recent dreams were not scenes from the past. It was about to catch fire now, she informed her husband. So he went to press the fire alarm, aiming to evacuate everyone before the fire. On the way, Mr. Sun Gu passed by Da Hee and told her that there was going to be a fire. At this time, Da Hee started to get scared. She wondered why at this time. Da Hee searched for In A. Dong Hee looked at her ex-lover's reaction. She was completely calm because she knew he was a coward. Surely he wouldn't dare to light the fire. As she predicted, he only did that to threaten her. Dong Hee admitted that was what she liked about him. Because he might be a bad guy, but not a cruel person. You're just a useless guy. Then she turned and walked away. She also told him to clean up the place. Hearing Dong Hee's words, he scolded her while cleaning. He accidentally put the gasoline-soaked cloth into the candlelight and caused a fire. He was scared and ran away. A while later, Guiju returned. Seeing the chaotic scene before his eyes, he hurriedly ran to find his relatives. Everyone in the audience was panicking as the fire was about to spread here. At that time, Dong Hee saw that the staff could not lower the fire curtain because it was caught in the light bulb. She thought for a moment and flew up there to lower the curtain and successfully helped everyone escape the danger. At that time, everyone was so busy running outside that they did not pay attention to her, so her ability was not discovered. In A and Hiram were trapped in the fire because the roller shutter was locked. Hiram felt afraid that she would be trapped here. In A ran to find another way. A while later, Guiju ran to break the roller shutter. Hiram pointed him in the direction of In A. He hurriedly chased in the direction Hiram pointed to save In A. At this time, In A was about to suffocate from the smoke. Suddenly, she heard Da Hee calling her. The two met again. Suddenly, the wall containing the clock was about to collapse. Luckily, Guiju arrived in time and caught it. He realized that this was the dream his mother told him. He told Da Hee to quickly take In A away from here. After saving the two people, he would return to the past as soon as Da Hee and In got out of there. The wall collapsed. Guiju suddenly returned to the moment In A was born. Guiju cried with emotion. He finally returned to this moment. He silently thanked his ex-wife. Then he ran really fast to Da Hee's school. Now everything had become colorful. He could touch everything. At the same time, everyone saw Guiju. When he arrived, he saw his senior. When Guiju called the senior name, this time he turned his head in response. However, he still went into the fire to save people. Very quickly after that, the entrance suddenly collapsed, and just like that, the senior died in the fire. Although Guiju was sad, he knew that he still had to stay rational. He quickly got the fire extinguisher. Because he had read about the school's map earlier, he was able to run quickly to the gym's warehouse to save Dahe. When he got there, he saw her fate from smoke inhalation. He gave her oxygen and carried her out, but the way out was extremely difficult. The two of them struggled to reach the window. Below, people had set up a cushion for people jumping from the upper floors. Guiju gave Dahi the family heirloom ring and told her to keep it safe. Then he pushed her down onto the cushion and told Dahi that this was just the beginning. They would meet again. As Dahi fell out, the fire broke out and killed Guiz. Back to the present, Donghee's ex-lover was imprisoned for causing a fire. Luckily, no one was injured in the fire. The family held a funeral for Guiz. A few years later, everyone has a new life. Hong Tai and Grace invited Donghee to use her flying ability to help them fly a few laps in the air. Mrs. Manhome is now a regular at Mrs. Li Hong's sauna. She sleeps very well there and often shares her dreams with Mrs. Li Hong. Since then, Mrs. Li Hong has avoided many troubles. Today, Mrs. Manhong dreamed that a distinguished guest appeared in her house. Dahe is no longer afraid of fire like before. She has a son with Guiju, a very active boy. The family doesn't know what his ability is. While Dahe was packing her clothes, her son suddenly came and gave her the toy ball that they lost yesterday. Dae wondered where her son got the ball from. The boy honestly said that he took it yesterday. Dae guessed that the boy had the ability to get lost things back, so Dae asked the boy to find Guiju. The boy sat for a while, and sure enough, Guiju returned to their family. Guiju stood there holding his son's hand, and Dahi emotionally congratulated Guiju on his return. Today's movie ends here. Thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye, and see you again in the next videos.